I was born in Canada. I've lived most of my life here. But Canadian whiskey is not where my love of brown spirits began. Regardless of where I started, it's where I find myself today. On this train, heading to Windsor, Ontario, to spend the day with a whiskey doctor. No, not that kind of doctor. The kind that gets his PhD in brewing and distilling. The kind that creates a rye that inspires me. That makes me want to learn more about what makes Canadian whiskey special, and to tell that story for you. It's one thing to taste and enjoy whiskey, or maybe to even read a book on the topic, but anyone who's been to a distillery can attest to the magic you feel there. The sights, the sounds, the smells, not much can top that, unless you have a guide like mine.
This one just does our rye and barley wheat, so our small grains. So this is a column still. So this site here has been here since 1858. Hiram Walker was an American. He actually came over at the age of 22 from the city of Boston. See where the GM Tower is, the big tall building?
Yeah.
So he bought a grocery store. That's what he did it for, and that's where his grocery store was located in the 1858s. And one of the things he did with the grocery store in that era was he would bring in moonshine. And I don't know what possessed Hiram Walker to do it, but I think a lot of people did this during that era. Is he would take that moonshine and run it through charcoal, and that would strip out all those congeners and those nasties that you don't, what people don't like in moonshine, right? So he would take that stuff and he would blend it together in his store and he would sell it. He was very profitable at it, and he wanted to grow his businesses. He wanted to start a distillery. Hiram Walker bought the property in 1856 for 1,600 pounds. It was 469 acres and there were 2 houses here. So where you're standing right now, there were 2 houses. It would have been forest. It would have been absolute forest, I'm sure. He eventually started his distillery, I believe, in October 1858. So it took him about 2 years to get it up and running. Hiram Walker actually never lived in Canada. He commuted across by boat here. His sons actually ended up living here and building up the community of what we know today as Walkerville. J.P. Weiser, John Philip Weiser, he was an American as well, and he started out in the distilling industry in the 1850s as well. He was from a place called Ogdensburg, New York, and really what his source of business was a cattle farmer. That's what he did for a living. So he was actually the first North American to export cattle to the United Kingdom. He had actually had over 60,000 head of cattle at one point. Do you smell the air here? A bit of maybe a bready note to it. But what you're smelling, most people think it's the fermentation you're smelling, and it's not really. It's actually us drying down the leftovers. It's what we call as distillers dry grains. J.P. Weiser knew what grew cattle faster than anything else was a waste from a distillery. Because we take out all the starch, which what yeast essentially consumes, and what's left over is your protein, fat, fiber, ash, and it's really great for cattle growth. And that's why he got into business. He bought a distillery in Prescott, Ontario for the purpose of growing cattle, not really for whiskey initially. Most people think Prohibition is what grew Canadian whiskey more than anything else, and that's really not true. Prohibition actually killed the Canadian whiskey category. What grew Canadian whiskey was the American Civil War, which is a period of 1861 to 1865. And it makes sense when you hear it. The American North was fighting the America South. Where's all the U.S. distilleries located? In the South, right? So you're fighting your enemy and you're not selling them whiskey. So J.P. Weiser, Hiram Walker, Henry Corby, Gooderham Worts took advantage of that situation. And you see the largest growth period. So all of a sudden in the 1860s to J.P. Weiser, whiskey became a lot more profitable than distillers' grains. So that's where you see his business started to take off. We are Canada's largest distillery. We make whiskeys for ourselves, and we also sell bulk whiskey as well.
What does that mean, that bulk whiskey?
So if you wanted to start your own brand name up, Laura's Whiskey, you can come to me and say, you know what, I want a whiskey. Okay, I can either blend it for you, we can sell it to you. We can even bottle it for you if you want, and you can sell it under your brand name. We can also sell you components of various things. If it's a rye whiskey, if it's a barley whiskey or a wheat whiskey or a corn whiskey, we can do that as well. So you can then blend your own at your own facility. That's how a lot of new distillers will start out, is they'll come to larger facilities, buy bulk, get themselves growing, and they still buy stills and things like that. We do provide that service, and it's nothing unusual. The whiskey business has been buying and selling barrels of this and that for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah.
Canadian Club is made here, correct?
Yep, so I deal with the master blender for Canadian Club. He's located out of Louisville, Kentucky. He gives me the recipe, so he knows the things that we make and the components that we make here, and he'll give me the recipe for it, and then we'll make it to their specification. The facility here in 2005 was purchased by a joint agreement by Jim Beam and Pernod Ricard. How that operated was Jim Beam, Pernod Ricard went and bought the 14 production facilities and brand names around the world, and they split it up. They're competitors, if you didn't realize, Jim Beam and Pernod Ricard. Jim Beam wanted the brand Canadian Club. Pernod Ricard wanted the brand Malibu. So all the 14 sites around the world were pretty easy to knew who was going to own the production sites. And the agreement between the two companies was the largest brand at the facility, that company got to keep it. So Jim Beam kind of thought, well, okay, Canadian Club's the largest distilled volume on site in 2005. It isn't today, but in 2005 it was. So that means we get to keep the site. And then Pernod Ricard said, well, wait a minute. The largest brand volume on the site is Malibu rum. So we bring in bulk rum from the West Indies rum distilleries, blend it up here, and the most case goods out of this site was Malibu rum. So the two companies went back and forth for about 6 months at that time saying, well, who's going to own the site? And finally, once the lawyers got, okay, it should be a Pernod site. Well, Pernod they didn't realize it. They actually would have thought. And the Jim Beam said, well, this is Canadian Club. We wanted the site. So Pernod did offer, you can buy the site if you want. And there was just too much money. And then Jim Beam said, well, this is a Canadian Club. We wanted a brand center here and everything. So what the agreement was at that time is between Pernod Ricard and Jim Beam, they let them have a brand center on site.
Okay.
So that's why you saw the Canadian Club. So they have 4 or 5 employees that work here doing a brand center activities, but the other 350 people that work here work for Pernod Ricard and Wiser's and Pike Creek and Lot 40 and Malibu Rum.
If you like this video, please hit the like button and comment below. Share with your friends and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.